All right. Well, welcome everyone to our inaugural meeting for the California State Transportation Agency, CalSTA, and the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act IIJA Reauthorization Working Group. First, I want to make you aware of some non-discrimination policy statement. Caltrans will make every effort to ensure non-discrimination in all of our services, programs, and activities, whether they are federally funded or not, and that services and benefits are fairly distributed to all people, regardless of race, color, or national origin. For more information on Title Title 6 of our Civil Rights Act 1964 at Caltrans, please visit our website and we'll also put this link in the chat. I just want to thank you for attending our webinar today, and I'll hand it off to Nicole to discuss our agenda for today. Nicole?
Hi, good morning. Thanks, Ryan. I'm Nicole Longoria, Caltrans' federal liaison. Welcome again to our inaugural CalSTA and Caltrans IIJA Reauthorization Workgroup meeting. Thank you for attending and for your efforts in implementing IIJA over the past 3 years. We're going to begin with remarks from our distinguished guests to set the stage. Next, we'll outline the workgroup's goals, structure, and federal advocacy plans. We'll review survey data from recent partner and stakeholder outreach. And finally, we'll open the floor for discussion to hear your insights and priorities for federal transportation advocacy. Next slide. So joining us today are CalSTA Secretary Tokes Omashakin and CTC Executive Director Tanisha Taylor to share some opening remarks. Unfortunately, Caltrans Director Tony Tavares was called away and he will not be able to join us today, so he sends his regrets. Secretary Omashakin, please kick us off.
Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate that. Thanks for all the work that you are doing to lead us on the federal front, and thanks to Andrew and Ryan as well for all the work you've been doing over the last several years, particularly the recent years on IIJA, the last 3 years of trying to get it implemented and looking forward as well. So to all of our stakeholders, partners, friends a very good morning to you. And welcome to the first meeting of an ongoing series for the IIJA Reauthorization Workgroup. We really appreciate all of you taking the time to join us and to be a part of this conversation to continue to help the state of California move forward on its priorities for transportation. I think it's important to start off with the fact that as we experience the devastating fires that have impacted so many parts of Southern California, particularly the Los Angeles region. I hope that many of you who are from that part of the state, you and your families are safe and okay. But the tragedy is a humble reminder of just how important infrastructure is in all forms. For the next federal surface transportation reauthorization package, the meetings that we will be hosting here will center around core 4 principles and state goals that many of you are familiar with and have been partners with us on, including ZEV adoption, increasing that adoption, transportation emission reductions, VMT reduction, and also increasing mode shift across the state. IIJA has had major impacts in California due to many of you who are on this call today. We all know it's a once-in-a-generation infrastructure augmentation that happened. But the challenge for us is to keep that momentum going. Since the passage in 2021, November of 2021 to be exact, when President Biden signed it into law, nearly $40 billion, that's a $40 billion of IIJA, of IIJA funding, both discretionary and formula dollars have come to California for transportation projects. It's helped to improve mobility for Californians, and it's creating a system that is more resilient to many of the climate change challenges that we have. So congratulations to all of you on the work you've been doing across the state, because it's not just been our state team that has brought that success. It's many of you who are in this meeting at the local, county, regional, nonprofit, academic organizations, private organizations, private companies who've been very helpful in bringing those dollars to California. Hundreds of IIJA funded projects have already been completed, and hundreds more are in the pipeline. I want to express my gratitude again to all of you for your hard work and collaborating to implement these IIJA provisions. This work helps ensure that funding delivers real benefits to communities across the state. So today, as we convene, we're invested and interested in members of our transportation community's success. The goal of this meeting is to start a conversation leading to coordinated federal transportation advocacy on behalf of Californians. I'll repeat that. The goal of this meeting is to start a conversation leading to coordinated federal transportation advocacy on behalf of all Californians. With the new federal administration that is now in place, there's some apprehension out there. But the goal, again, for us is to focus on the work we need to do and what we need to accomplish, and set those other concerns and apprehensions aside in these conversations in this virtual room. I know there will be many diverse viewpoints in this group, but I want everyone to keep their eye on our goals and work together to get there. We need to protect our federal programs that we greatly value and advocate for what is best for California. Two things I think that are again, repeating. CalSTA, this organization, is here to support our state goals for the transportation sector, including some of the things I mentioned earlier, but in particular, reducing serious injuries and fatalities on our roadways to zero by the year 2050. So safety will remain critically important. Leveraging transportation funding to meet the state's climate goals. Moving transportation towards a zero emission future, and advancing equity and opportunities and access and outcomes for the people of the state. Every goal we aim for must also embed our core 4 priorities that all of you know very well by now already. Those core 4 priorities: safety, equity, climate action, and economic prosperity. Please lean into solutions for what will come after the IIJA. Some of those solutions that we need to keep in mind are streamlining project delivery, stabilizing the Federal Highway Trust Fund, investing in ports and goods movement, and increasing transportation opportunities and mobility options for people across the state. Please keep doing the great work all of you have been doing to be innovative, forward-thinking, and to get things done to advance transportation in California. Again, I'm very appreciative of all the work that you all have been doing to support the state and improving mobility. With that, I'm going to be handing over, because Director Tavares is not here. I'm going to be heading over to Director Taylor next, but before she comes on, I want to know if anybody has any specific questions for me. I will be on this meeting and participating to the bottom of the hour, so I won't be able to participate in all the discussions here. I wish I could, and listen to many of the commented questions that will come up. But if anybody has any burning questions, we have almost 300 people on, 245 to be exact. If you have any questions, you could raise your hand or type it in based on those instructions that Ryan gave earlier. I'll be glad to take them, just 1 or 2, and then I will turn my camera off and listen to the rest of the discussion this morning, as long as I can. Any questions for me? Comments? Going once, going twice before I hand over to Director Taylor. Out of 300 people, 244 people. Okay. Ryan, nothing on your end?
Let me double check. Vanessa, Jelena, do you see any hands raised or questions?
Okay, it looks like we got one hand raised. Amar, I'm gonna unmute yourself.
Strategic Growth Council, thank you for your opening remarks. I think top of mind for a lot of us on the call, seeing the executive orders coming out from the federal government, and seeing how they may impact our work here in California around environmental justice and equity, wanting to see how leadership across the state is going to be supporting some of our early efforts in this work, and seeing how we can shore up some of the programs that are at risk for having funds pulled back because of their investments in environmental justice and equity, and wanting to kind of convey our support from the Strategic Growth Council, how we may be able to support any of the conversations moving forward.
Yeah, thanks, Amar, for that question, and thanks for the work that SGC does on so many fronts related to the IIJA and just improving the quality of life for people in the state. Look, I'm not going to comment directly on anything that is coming out of this new administration, but what I can tell you is that issues like equity and just justice for people in general are tenets of what we believe in as a state, the state of California. I think you know that this Governor Newsom, helped establish an equity commission, and the theme for our state is a California for all. In many of our departments, and I'm sure including your agency there at SGC, have sort of an overall equity action plan or an equity statement. And so our direction is that we're going to continue to live by those tenets, those principles. There's no change in direction there. So, and that goes to hopefully all of the state entities, and I can't speak for the local partners you're on, but hopefully you will do the same as well on these tenets. I mentioned the core four priorities that we believe in. And so we will continue to uphold those and live by those. As far as those things that are in jeopardy, we have to do our best to continue to, even though a new administration is in place, continue to shore up those investments that have been dedicated to California, and try to deliver those projects as soon as we can. I think those projects have a lot of merit, is what I would argue. And so, standing on their merit, let's continue to try our best to deliver those. If there's any kind of, litigation at some point on some of these things, I think those, the people who are in charge of those kinds of things will work it out. But in the meantime, we need to be running our relay as fast as we can to deliver those projects that we've been awarded funds for. But Amar, thank you for that question. Appreciate it. I'll take one more, and then I'll let Director Taylor take over. And any other one question, right? Are we good?
Anything else, Vanessa? Any chat? Jelena? Chat?
Yeah, we do actually have one in the chat. It reads, the climate and economic justice screening tool was just taken down by the White House. Do we see a continuing investment in the Cal Enviro screen to be able to speak to equity concerns statewide?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wasn't even aware of that coming down. I again can't directly comment on anything that they're doing in Washington. That's just not something that's going to be a focus of mine. I can tell you, just like I mentioned before, that our calling card is to continue to lift up the tenets that we believe in California. That's what I can tell you. And Cal Enviro Screen is one of those things that the state and local partners, regional partners have used for years to identify how to help priority communities, how to lift them up more and make better policy and funding decisions in those communities. And so whether it be CalEnviroScreen or the EQI that Caltrans also recently developed, if you're not familiar with it, you should look it up. It's the Equity Index tool, EQI. Whether it be either one of those types of tools, our calling card, keep trying to lift up communities that have been marginalized or left behind for one reason or another. How do we give them prosperity while we serve everybody else? I don't think that changes at all. We serve everybody, but we also have to keep in mind priority communities that we have for years made funding or policy decisions that have negatively impacted. So anyway, good question there as well. Really appreciate those questions, and I understand your concerns as well. So, but let's keep doing it. Those things that we so believe in California is what I would strongly encourage to this group. All right, I'm not gonna delay this meeting any further. I want to make sure that Director Taylor gets a chance to get in her remarks and this meeting continues. So again, everybody, really appreciate you taking the time to be a part of this conversation, this series of meetings in the months to come for the reauthorization. Thank you. Nicole? Oh, Director Taylor, rather.
Thank you, Secretary. I'll just start with first echoing all of the things that the Secretary said. I think California, we all know that we have a history of kind of fighting for the things that we value, and I don't think that that's going to change regardless of who is the President of the United States or what administration is there. And so the questions around equity or environmental justice or environmental concerns, we're going to be creative. We're going to continue to do the things and continue to strive and meet the goals that we've set forward and the ambitious goals, and we're going to push further to achieve those things. And that's my personal commitment as the executive director of the commission, that we're not shirking away and we're not going to shrink. We're going to be creative and keep moving towards those goals and hitting those goals, because meeting those goals means that the future and our children are able to breathe clean air. They're able to go out to parks and do the things that we really, really value as Californians. I want to thank everyone who's on this call, because I know you're taking the time to be here with us. And as we develop these priorities for how we engage on the next transportation authorization are critical to how we continue to meet those goals. I want to echo Secretary Omashakin's remarks in terms of everyone down in the LA region, and that we're here to support you. We're here to help find those solutions as they're needed. And most importantly, I hope you and your families are safe and are housed. We'll continue to support those core principles and the core four that Tokes has talked about through our funding programs, and aligning with funding and being creative on those solutions. But most importantly, I'm appreciative of you all giving us your time to be here today, to have this conversation, to give us your feedback, because we don't want to be in an echo chamber as we're developing our policy principles, and we really want those policy principles to represent the great state that California is and the great work that we've done so far. And so with that, I'll turn it back to Ryan, I believe, correct?
I'll take it from here, Executive Director Taylor. Thank you both for your inspiring words. Very much appreciated. Next slide, please. All right, so since IIJA's passage, as Secretary Omashakin said, we have achieved so much together. So thank you again for your partnership and commitment to these efforts. I'd like to start today by looking at a few key highlights from our IIJA implementation efforts. We have over $53 billion in total federal funding that has been announced for California, including nearly $11.5 billion in transportation discretionary related grants. So this is huge. We're really punching above our weight here. We have more than $13 billion that's been invested in transportation projects, creating over 170,000 jobs, with nearly $1.9 billion allocated to disadvantaged business enterprises. In December 2021, Caltrans and CalSTA formed a working group to coordinate IIJA implementation. Regular meetings were held through 2022 and 23, which guided our decisions on program administration and funding allocation. Sub-working groups were created to address key topics important to stakeholders statewide, and these efforts taught us valuable lessons that we aim to build on in this group. Next slide, please. So next we're going to discuss the proposed work group structure, our goals, and timeline. Next slide, please. So here's our proposed new work group structure. On the left are our previous IIJA sub-working groups, and on the right is our new proposed structure. The updated structure is based on survey results and lessons learned from managing our previous groups. We've reduced the number of groups to encourage collaboration and reduce siloing. This approach aims to focus discussions and produce more actionable outcomes. The structure also more closely aligns with CalSTA and Caltrans' core 4 priorities: safety, equity, climate action, and economic prosperity. We welcome your feedback during today's discussion or after the meeting. Next slide, please. So here are our outcomes, goals, and possible products. For outcomes, we want coordinated federal advocacy on behalf of the state of California and federal surface transportation reauthorization legislation that reflects California's unique values and objectives. For goals, we want to ensure that all voices will be heard and recognized, develop actions by consensus and for the benefit of California's entire transportation system. And for possible products, we have some options that are listed here. Next slide, please. So here's our timeline through 2025-26. It may seem a little early to discuss reauthorization while we're still implementing IIJA, but we're working backwards with the Act's expiration to prepare for advocacy. IIJA's current authority ends in September 2026, meaning Congress will start debating reauthorization changes in 2025 and 2026. We need to be ready to present our ask starting mid-2025 to be part of these discussions. This could include model legislation to be introduced in 2025, or white papers and advocacy priorities, which need to be ready even sooner. Please keep this timeline in mind as we move forward. Next, Andrew will review the results from our recent outreach survey leading up to this work group. Thank you. Andrew?
Thank you, Nicole. So hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Carhart, Caltrans Federal Legislation Manager. And like Nicole said, I'm here to review the details of reauthorization surveys and responses that we put out. We did this survey starting back in August of 2024 through our biweekly mailing list, and we've been soliciting additional feedback throughout the winter in advance of this meeting. So this collected feedback is going to be made available on our website. This won't be the only time you'll get the chance to see it. I am going to speed through this a little bit, so keep that in mind. And then following the presentation, we're also going to leave our survey open through February, possibly into March, in case you haven't yet had an opportunity to provide feedback. And we'll update our results and put that back out to the group as we get new things in. Next slide, please. So you'll see here the 7 questions that we asked our respondents. What are your policy and project priorities? Would you be interested in joining a working group? How much time are you willing to commit? What outcomes do you want? Do you have any concerns with participating? And we gave a final catch-all question for anything else that they'd like to comment on. So based on the respondents' contact organization, we put, you'll see on that bottom right-hand box, we put people into sort of buckets of what types of organizations they represented. There's a pretty good mix of cities, counties, councils of governments. There's also a pretty widespread between rural and urban interests across the state. I do want to note that the survey didn't ask participants to identify that they were part of an organization. So there's a possibility some people who responded by personal email might have been miscategorized. So don't take this as a rigorous academic survey. It was in advance of this work group that we did this. Next slide, please. So I'm going to take you through some of the response data. This is, really not a representative sample of everybody in California. It's limited to who is on our mailing list. We do have over 700 transportation stakeholders on it, so keep that in mind. It's also a bit of a subjective categorization based on the raw data, so we tried to keep your words in here as much as possible, but we did need to actually make it something where we could have a good summary of it. So some of the takeaways from my end, priorities really seem to cluster around transit, active transportation, safety, multimodality, zero emission vehicle infrastructure and EV charging, and also rail. And you'll see from the data here that the responses from individuals were really heavily coming in on active transportation, transit, and ZEVs. Cities, counties, COGs, other government entities seem to have a little bit different priorities. So just keep that in mind as we're going forward. I do want to mention there are very few outliers here. Everything that was mentioned could pretty clearly be mapped into some existing California transportation priorities. So that was quite appreciated to see. Next slide, please. And then as Nicole mentioned, so what we did here is we took your survey data and we tried to map them back to our CalSTA and Caltrans Core 4 priorities. So safety includes things like active transportation, advanced technologies, traffic calming, road diets. Equity has multimodality, workforce development in it. Climate action holds things like emergency response, affordable housing, electric vehicles. And then lastly, economic prosperity aligns with things like heavy duty vehicle conversions and reduced traffic congestion. So this mapping is hopefully going to help align our federal advocacy with the upcoming strategic plan. And I do want to note that most responses that we received here were representative of the Core 4 priorities and had a home there. So we understand that people may have different positions on specific issues, but we do think that everything listed here will be considered as part of that framework going forward, and it's something that we can advocate for. Next slide, please. And then this is our results from the highest priority projects. In terms of the most mentioned projects, active transportation, rail, and transit were by far the most mentioned by respondents. But it is possible that some advocates are not at the level to have knowledge of specific project priorities, or that people maybe don't have their plans yet for some of those projects. So this information is mainly just for things the group may want to consider, whether we want to advocate for individual projects with statewide or interregional importance, and particularly looking for specific appropriations or earmark asks. Next slide. And here we have the results of the expected product or outcome. In the past, we've produced consensus principles documents, letters, other types of published documents to communicate our federal priorities. We do want to leave it open to this group to decide collectively on what we produce as an outcome of these meetings. I will note that a significant portion of the respondents had no response to this, about half of them. And of those who did respond, there seems to be good support for producing a consensus principles document along with draft legislation, white papers. And a portion of our respondents also envision the working group providing less structured products like coordinated advocacy, public engagement, or partnerships. And next slide. And so this is really just what went into our scheduling of this work group, in terms of how interested people were in participating and the time commitments. Almost 2/3 of our respondents reported that they wanted to participate. And of those who are available, a majority expected to be able to commit a couple days a month or a few hours a week towards a working group. So going forward, we plan to schedule meetings of the full working group on about a monthly frequency, and then also have shorter, more intensive sub-working group meetings on the identified specific topic issues that you saw before. Next slide. And then lastly, only about a quarter of the respondents had some concerns about participating. You'll see that those concerns were mainly around time, although a small portion expressed concern about their lack of experience on the topics, lack of consensus, or inability to impact outcomes. So thank you, and we'll be happy to take any questions when we get into our discussion on any of these topics.
Thank you, Andrew. So quickly, here are the next steps for our work group meetings. Starting next month, we'll hold focused, short meetings on our reauthorization topics. All registered participants here today will be invited to attend these meetings, and we'll also post meeting details on our Caltrans Federal Liaison website, making these meetings open to anyone who wishes to attend. We'll create proposed narratives for each topic, and we'll compile them into one document that we aim to release by November 1st of this year. Next slide. So now we'll open the floor for discussion to hear your insights and priorities for federal transportation advocacy, or any other questions that you may want to ask us here today. Thank you.
Okay, it looks like we have a couple hands raised already. Michael, I saw you first, so I'm gonna unmute you.
Morning, Michael Pimentel, Executive Director of the California Transit Association. Did have just a few observations I wanted to lend to this conversation. First, with regards to principles and priorities, I did want to note that my association, on behalf of our 220 member organizations, are just in the early stages of identifying our principles and policy priorities for reauthorization. Therefore, we did not complete your survey. What I did want to indicate is that there may be other trade organizations that, because of our very deliberative processes internally, may also be in that same camp. And so did want to highlight there may be priorities, maybe principles not yet expressed in the surveys that will be forthcoming. Of course, our interest is in coordinating with you in the months ahead to make sure that we are elevating the work that we're doing internally, hoping to harmonize it here with the efforts at the state level, make sure that we are speaking with one voice as a state. I did also want to just touch on work product. This is perhaps my third or fourth time participating in a reauthorization work group like this at the state level. And what I would communicate is that generally speaking, we have found the most value in working toward a work product that is at the principles level, with certain recommendations with regards to policy priorities, potential changes to statute. But I would say that the idea of developing statute by committee with more than 200 organizations strikes me as perhaps something that would expend a lot of time and not necessarily lead to consensus. And so my strong encouragement would be that we remain at that high principles level. And then finally, there was a question of whether or not we should advocate for particular projects. We've had similar conversations about this in previous reauthorization working groups. At those times, I think the general indication is that we would not identify individual projects. As you can imagine, that becomes very much a conversation about political weight, the energy around projects, and then ultimately, what is the process at the state level to adjudicate what projects get priority in what we events as a state and which do not. And so that strikes me also as an area where we can very quickly devolve the process into being one that's no longer productive and really just a matter of who's on the calls, what weight they bring, and that may not necessarily lead to the priority projects in fact advancing. And so just a few observations. Of course, others may have differing views, but again, really appreciate the opportunity to participate today. Look forward to future meetings with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate your feedback and your input. Definitely, we have seen that there are many agencies that are probably in the same boat as you, that we're not able to respond to our survey because of their timelines and boards and commissions and whatnot. So we absolutely have seen that as well. So we're just going to keep moving forward, and as things are starting to gel in this space with your agencies, we're hopeful that you'll be able to more outwardly share, maybe what some of those priorities are within these working groups, so that we can continue to, address those needs as well. And but I think the bigger picture is we're hoping with what we have received so far that these topics are broad enough to cover most items that we would probably see in reauthorization priorities. So we're just going to have to kind of wait and see how that goes. So we'll see what next month brings us as we continue to chart forward. And I'll pause and see if my team wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. I did also want to note one of the comments in the chat that relates to this about tribal outreach. We did conduct outreach to tribes specifically because we did see that there was, no responses from them So we were looking for that, and I do think there are some gaps in our surveys because of exactly what Michael and Nicole just said. Not everybody's ready to put something out on paper, and we understand that. That's why I do want to make sure you understand this is not a rigorous academic survey. This was really in preparation for this working group, just to lay the groundwork and to give some information back to you all. We didn't want to be coming Caltrans with our agenda in hand for you. We wanted to listen first before embarking on anything here.
Thanks, Andrew. Vanessa, Jelena, how is the chat looking for questions or comments?
There were a couple of questions for Secretary Omashakin, but I believe he has left. So I'll save those questions and send them over to him another time. But another question that's in the chat is, can you talk about how you plan to coordinate the recommendations with other states to build broader support on key priorities?
Thank you for that, Jelena. And yes, we'll make sure that the questions for Secretary Omashakin are shared with him, and we'll get back to you with his responses on those. So absolutely, as we're firming up our federal priorities, we're going to be looking internally within the state and outside the state for synergies where we can, align our advocacy efforts. We want to build coalitions, and I think it's going to be very important, especially with this new administration, to do things on a larger scale that way. So we will be looking to our other states to build those coalition efforts with us.
We also do have a couple more hands up if we want to go to that.
Let's jump to Eli Lipman.
I don't think it can be seen.
That is correct, but we can hear you.
Okay, great. Eli Lipman, I am the executive director for Move LA and Move California, and I think we'll be sort of a broken record on this as we continue to advocate for funding for transportation operations so that we have fast, frequent, reliable transportation service throughout the state of California and throughout the country. We've been strong advocates since the very beginning for Hank Johnson's bill, HR 7039. In the 118th Congress, it had 151 co-sponsors, including near 30 members of the California congressional delegation. So more than a majority are in support of this bill, which would, in cases like LA Metro, increase operations dollars available from the federal government by 40% of LA Metro's current operating budget in the LA region. And that would be for munis as well as agencies across the state. And so we've been working with our congressional delegation to move that forward. And we'd like to ensure it wasn't really included in part of the survey, but it is a key priority for the congressional delegation. And I think it's important for us to be in conversation with them about that bill. The second thing, and this I'm speaking on behalf of nearly or 67 organizations statewide who communicated a letter to Director Tavares and Chair Gardino and the CTC commissioners regarding maximum, flexibility on how we are spending funding from the federal government. The state of California has been really sort of at the leading edge of states that have taken federal dollars and flexed those dollars to be able to support our GHG target goals. And in particular, that means, prioritizing transportation projects over highway expansion projects that worsen traffic, and scaling up those investments in public transit and active transportation and affordable infill housing. And so we'd like to ensure or see in the infrastructure bill the codification of those programmatic advisements that were provided by USDOT that allowed for these programs to be flexed and for funding to be moved between programs by states, and that flexibility. Our big concern is that that the administration will not allow some of that with as a discretionary effort through USDOT. And so if we can have Congress codify the ability for states to flex funding between programs, that will allow us in going forward. And remember, IIJA, or sorry, the infrastructure reauthorization is a 5-year piece of legislation, so it will run through 2 administrations after 2028. So we really need to ensure that we have that flexibility as a state to do that. And I think that needs to be a key priority if we are to achieve the core 4 principles and priorities that the secretary mentioned at the outset. Thank you.
Thank you, Eli. I appreciate your comments and feedback. Definitely, you've raised some very important issues that we hope that you'll come and carry us into the discussion starting next month.
Oh, don't worry. You will see my face and those of many others, as well as receive many advocacy emails from our organizations in the future. So yes, we will be there at every point along the way. Thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. Okay. Any more hands raised? Or I know I'm seeing the chat light up over here too.
Yeah, I have a couple in the chat. The next question we have in the chat is, how do we plan to handle the priorities of the new federal funding possibilities?
Of new federal funding possibilities?
Yes, that is what it reads.
Could you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course. How do we plan to handle the priorities of the new federal funding possibilities?
Well, definitely we're going to be looking to see what is raised during our discussions with our work group and sub-working group meetings. I anticipate, just based on the survey results that we've seen so far, that there will be space to advocate for new federal funding. We'll just have to see what comes out of these discussions, but I imagine that will be part of our platform moving forward.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, I have a couple more hands raised. I see Jeannie. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jeannie Woodwaller, on behalf of Climate Plan. It really nice to see you all this morning, and thank you for hosting this forum. I want to start by just seconding everything that Eli said, and I actually just, I think maybe to start, my questions I think feel a little bit more urgent than like sort of what comes, in the next 2 years, or we'll talk about over the course of this work group. But just in light of what we saw Monday with the executive orders, and this speaks a little to I think what Amar was saying at the outset. There were obviously executive orders rolling back DEI initiatives, programs around equity, certainly around climate as well, and rolling back potentially some of California's unique authority around regulating vehicle emissions, and even freezing federal funds, not allowing current IIJA funds to go out the door. I'm wondering if there's sort of an urgent need for California, for this stakeholder group, as well as our delegation, to have some really urgent priorities that we express soon, in the very near term, about how important all these programs are, the funding has been, and also just reiterating and strengthening our goals and our values from California. So I wonder if that's something that you all are thinking about, that maybe we can make a push on. And then I'm pleased to see the survey results that you all shared. I think our coalition is strongly supportive of active transportation, transit operations funding, and it looks like that had really overwhelming support in the survey, so that's great. I think specifically we would encourage very specific support for some of the programs that were new under IIJA, things like reconnecting communities, neighborhood access and equity, safe streets for all, NEVI, the carbon reduction program. You know, there were a lot of new programs that were like very aligned with California's priorities. So just, you know, expressing some clear support for those programs as we anticipate that they may be under attack or may go away. And in the absence of those, I think what Eli said about maintaining our flexibility within federal programs to shift funding towards the things that we do care about here in the state feels really important. So I'm happy to share that letter that Eli mentioned. We did just send it around, I think on Tuesday. So it's a strong statement from advocates from our group in Climate Plan in terms of what we would like to see from state leadership going into this year, particularly in light of what we're hearing out of the federal administration right off the bat. So would love to work with you on that and, you know, have a support for some of those priorities from our whole California stakeholder community. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeannie. Great to hear your voice, and I appreciate your participation here today. And I agree. I think that we need to urgently meet and discuss these issues. So I think that we should have this be our first kickoff, or not kickoff, but our first focus meeting around these topics. And I'm sure many of you on the call would agree with me that we can't wait. There's a lot of urgent things going on in this space. And I think we should take advantage of this opportunity that we have with being able to convene so many of our statewide stakeholders together to have some of these discussions. So I would like to try to schedule our first meeting to follow up this meeting, probably the second week in February. I know a lot of us may or may not be traveling back to DC for the AASHTO Washington briefing. So that pretty much takes up that entire week. So we will be looking to see if we can schedule this meeting then. And Jeannie, I would absolutely appreciate if you could send me that letter that that you talked about. I would appreciate being able to read that myself. Thank you so much. And thanks again for your feedback.
I can confirm that we did receive that letter officially through the director and also through the secretary. So, you know, just so you're aware.
We have it too. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any more questions, comments?
Yep. Sorry, I was going to do a quick time check. I think we have about 8 minutes left, but I think we have a couple other people, so I'll hand it off to Vanessa if we have anybody.
Yes, we still have a couple more hands raised. Kamal, if you can unmute yourself, please. Oh, Kamal. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Okay, I can hear you. Perfect.
Yeah, asking as an individual, I'm new to these kinds of reauthorization meetings, but you mentioned earlier that there was discretionary and then there was formula funding. What is the split with that, and that is dependent on what Congress says can be funded? Is that correct, or?
So are you talking about the difference in dollar amounts or the actual percentage split?
Yeah, the percentage split.
So I don't have that figure in front of me right now. There's definitely been an increased number in our discretionary programs with this authorization bill, and we've been working very, very hard with all of our partners across the state to put together some great applications and to apply for as many of these discretionary grant programs as possible so that we can leverage our other funding sources. So I could just reiterate maybe that for California right now, my office puts together a biweekly IIJA newsletter, and we try to capture a lot of these data points to share. So with just transportation related discretionary grant programs, we have nearly 11.5 billion so far. So this would be through actually through this week. So with what's been officially announced out in this space. And then as far as the total funding, so that would include the discretionary and formula, we have about 53 billion that's been announced, and that's everything, not just transportation funding.
Okay, I see. And is there any plan to say discuss permitting and new transportation projects?
We could definitely. I think that may have come up in our survey results. Andrew, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we would definitely be willing to talk about that in the appropriate meetings.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Environmental permitting and streamlining permit processes did come up in our responses.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's a pretty big priority of mine as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
A quick time check, Ryan. Do we have time for one more question?
I know we have a couple more slides. I'll defer to Nicole if we have 4 minutes.
I think we could take another question.
Okay, Mike Woodman, I'm gonna unmute you.
Nicole, this is Mike Woodman, Executive Director of the Nevada County Transportation Commission. Just want to support Jeannie Ward Waller's comments about advocating for continuation of the funding, the new funding programs that were included in IIJA. Given the stark reminder of the devastation with the wildfires in Los Angeles and the recurring wildfires and impacts that we have every year, it's critical that we continue to advocate for continuation of the Federal Protect program that allows us to make our infrastructure more resilient, as well as address community resilience and evacuation and address our at-risk coastal infrastructure. Those are going to be key moving forward. These threats aren't going away, and that's really was a historic funding source to allow us to address some of those critical infrastructure issues and community safety issues. So strongly urge advocating for continuation of that program. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Great to hear your voice as well. Mike and I go way back. We were in high school together. So always appreciate hearing from you and wholeheartedly agree. I think the Protect program is absolutely one that we're going to need to continue to advocate for. We have a lot of unique issues here in the state, and we're continuing to be challenged with our extreme weather events. So this is definitely a very important federal program that we'll be looking at. Okay, with that, I think we should probably wrap. If there are outstanding questions or comments in the chat, we will look at all of those and we will provide responses to all of them. So I apologize if we weren't able to get to your questions today. On this last slide here, I just want to point out our contact information and some useful resources. We have our Caltrans IIJA Reauthorization website. So this will include past meeting and upcoming meeting details. We have the Building California website, which also houses our IIJA policy narratives and biweekly newsletters that I was talking about. And then our office email address as well. So please reach out with any questions. You're also more than welcome to call any of us. We would love to hear from you. We really feel it's very, very important for us as the state DOT to carry as many voices that are raised during this process. So we're very excited to have you involved with this process with us. I appreciate your engagement today. We all do, and we look forward to what we'll accomplish together. So take care, and we'll connect soon. Look for a meeting invitation for that second week in February. Thank you.
With that, I will end the recording, and in the meeting, you should get a survey result afterwards. And thank you so much.